I kind of went in not knowing anything, which is one of the kind of joys of being able to watch films like this. And you're executive producer, so I'm just wondering what your kind of relationship is with this film, other than being an actor for something like King's Speech.
Well, I suppose the reason that my agent fought to give me an executive producer credit might have had something to do with the fact that I was the first person to receive the script, which literally came in a brown paper envelope on my front doormat at my home in Melbourne, Australia. Because there was a woman producer in England at that stage it was a theatre script, a play script, and an English producer was inviting me to see whether I was interested in playing this character who happens to be Australian. And it turned out that her best friend, or her sister, I can't remember which, lived a couple of blocks from my house, and that was the avenue she chose as to how to get the script to me. She had a lovely apologetic cover note saying, "I know this is not the orthodox way of doing it, but I thank her for that, because I read it. It wasn't convenient or suitable for me to commit to the time frame of doing a play at that point. I already had other commitments and so forth. But I contacted my agent and said, I've just read the most extraordinary story that happens on so many different levels, on almost, the historical events that surround the story have a genuine sort of quasi-Shakespearean dimension to them. And locked away within this is this amazing developed friendship between two men who seem to come from the furthest extremes on the planet that you could possibly provide for two characters, and a real life relationship at that, where you have someone brought up in the long dynastic line and imperial nature of the royal family of Britain, and a colonial nobody who happens to be a kind of failed Shakespearean actor, speech therapist, where circumstances bring them together, because the king the king that we're talking about is George VI, and he did suffer since childhood from a very debilitating stammer. So with this great cultural and class abyss and continental divide, as it were, between them, I thought it made for the wonderful shape for dramatic storytelling. And as we found out in Telluride, we knew there were moments of natural humour within the relationship, but a lot of the film plays with a very mischievous kind of wit as well between these two men.
Were you familiar with the fact that the king had this, growing up, did you know that this
Yeah,
was...
I did. I mean, the big events, I've always been a sort of surrogate royal watcher, in the sense that I, just historically, even going back to Ethelred the Unready, or, Henry II or Richard III or whoever, the stories within each royal household have always been, great theatre in a funny sort of a way. And I was aware that he was a stammerer, but I had no knowledge of Lionel Logue, let alone knowing that he was an Australian speech therapist with an interesting story of his own, in the fact that he had started out treating, because of his elocution training and teaching, he had provided great kind of invented pastoral care for soldiers returning from the First World War from the front to Australia back in the 1918 onwards into the 20s. And because of his elocution training, he devised techniques that wanted to help these men who had developed tics or stutters, or some of the symptoms of severe shell shock.